So at least once in our drift lives, we've absolutely wondered or have been asked, why are Japanese drift tracks so different, and what kind of thought process goes behind designing one? And also, why are American drift tracks and layouts so different, and what kind of thought process goes behind designing them? Are they just glorified oval tracks? What exactly are the differences between the two? Well, today I'm gonna answer most of your questions in this video. But first of all, take note, I don't know everything. I'm not God, life is debatable. So if I leave anything out or make a mistake, which I will do because I'm human, let's just teach each other in the comments. Let's be grown up about it and just talk about it. We aren't in high school anymore, no one has time to argue. So basically, I like to look at Japanese drift tracks as squares. A lot of times, but not all the times, they're basically just straight lines joined together. As you can see on the screen, a piece of Minami. Mobara Twin Circuit. Mobara Twin Circuit. I tend to forget the names at times. Motorland SP, MSP. Famous Nasero Corsa. As it was Drift Playground, if I'm not wrong, something like that. Mayhem Sportsland. It's way too famous. Don't even need to ask you if you know what it is. Nico Circuit. The corners aren't really circular. That's what I mean by this. The illustration is just to show that corners aren't as circular as people may think they are. A lot of straight lines. Circular for a second, but around some squarey or rectangular edge. The curves and cornering are like two lines meeting and being filed and smoothened together to make a soft curve. Another fun fact is sometimes you can literally stand at certain spots at Japanese drift tracks and see straight lines. Literally just like a straight line. Which brings us on to our next point, and that's Aki Fujio, by the way. We all know that Japanese drifters have some pretty amazing precision, right? They naturally create amazing drift techniques that you can't help but ask yourself how they came to think of such. And you will tend to assume that it's because of their art-shaped tracks, or simply because they're Asian. Because we all know that being Asian gives you more IQ. But jokes aside, how I look at it is, basically drifting is a circle. It's a circular motion, and drift tracks are basically like drifting around a cone or figure-8 drifting, just done to large scale. We're just going around in circles all day. It's just a circular motion. It's yin and yang. Drift tracks are basically straight lines and circles combined. When you transition, you determine what kind of circle it is. You transition early, it becomes a semicircle. Transition earlier, it becomes a quarter of a circle. And when you pull the handbrake mid-drift, the circumference grows and you go a little bit wider. When you pull the handbrake after a feint, when you still have rotational energy, your car snaps into more angle and you're going deeper into the corner. They do a lot at Mayhem, and their angle isn't just for style. It helps you cut deeper into the corner and drop speed faster if you do have the right setup. And there's a guy called NaokiNakamura. He's literally mastered this technique, and using the wrong shoes, still manages to pull it off almost perfectly every time. His precision is ridiculous. But moving on, you pull the handbrake and the foot brake at the same time. You begin to draw a square. Drifting is a circular motion, remember. If you do it too much or do it too early, you get an oopsie. But these are all simple things you guys know. Drifting is a circular way of travel. It's a circular motion, as I've mentioned about 200 times in this video. So that's why if your track is slim in width and has more odd, rough or squarey shapes, your choices of line to pick from are fewer. That's one of the many main reasons why Japan has the highest, closest tandem success rate in the world compared to anywhere else, because it's easier to follow someone when you know where they're going. I mean, just look at this. This is on the street. That's the D1GP. That's the Bisuminami. Although a lot of other countries are getting better at it now, but it did take them some time to get to where they are now. And I'm not talking about having one excellent driver, but a whole field of drivers being quite good at chasing. A whole field on average being good at chasing. Well, moving on, in Japan, space is most definitely not the most available thing. With people having to rent garages away from their homes to have their car stored there, shows the space most definitely isn't easily available. Drift tracks there aren't so big at times, which is why you'll notice most designers have a tendency of looping corners into the center of the track. Which brings us to another fun fact. Many of their tracks look like kart tracks, and you tend to hear the word sportsland a lot. Pronunciation, my bad. Main Sportsland. Sportsland Yamanashi. Sugo Sportsland. It's a really hard place. It's tight. And they're called that because they're literally hobby tracks for small bikes, gymkhana, kart, etc., etc. It's just that drifters colonize the tracks and they drift on them occasionally, if not regularly. There's a big famous one called Gunma Cycle Center, but most drifters know it by the name Kansai. It's basically a bicycle-themed amusement park with all kinds of rides. It has some very creative types of bike ride ideas, and the circuit there was designed as a road bike race course. That's actually used a lot for biking, and it was used a lot more in hot version. And having such tight corners needs you to be very precise, which is a big reason why in Japan you find them using final end gear ratios like 4.3s. Some stuff as crazy as 4.6s, you can see in the video above the next car. Fourth gear. They don't favor crazy powered practice cars for many reasons, for which two are the tracks are small. And why would you be doing an 800 horsepower car on 365 size tires on the car track? And something which everyone has probably knows about them is that when they're drifting, you'll tend to notice their aim is not high speed mid-drift, but crazy ridiculous entry speeds. And it's something which is pretty normal there, because with Japanese drifting, their style is about how you slow down into a corner. You grip race onto the straight and find a way to drop some of the speed and maintain it throughout the corner. Which is something that a lot of track designs really push towards. You get a big acceleration into a smallish corner, which is something you tend to see a lot at YZ. Which is dudes holding massive speed and trying their absolute best to carry the speed throughout the whole course. The fastest Japanese drivers are those who can enter the fastest and keep the most speed, and even try and increase speed at small points mid-drift. That's what it takes to be the fastest there. Wait, do you see that? He squeezed just a little bit more speed than the lead driver, and that made him catch up. He was on throttle when the lead driver was not on throttle. Just small things like that. Because Japanese drifting is literally a game of who has the biggest and the smartest balls on the field. Yeah, man, it's all about pushing as much as possible, and driver difference is pretty clear because the cars are not that different. Our cars aren't that different, man. And yes, it's a thing of drift on the street. Takagi. The cars aren't so different and far apart. It's almost purely a fair league of drifting. It's precision. Another interesting thing about Japan is the street influence that they have on the track designs. A lot of times I believe some of the drift track designs are quite street influenced. I just want you to pay attention to the examples I'm about to show on the screen. Some abused examples, but they work. Yeah, this video is from Alexi Smith. In all honesty, I don't know who came first between these sections, or where drifting first started between the places, but you can't help feel that something did contribute to something in these places' designs. When you're watching drifting, watch momentum. Momentum tells you something. The flow. Don't look at the road, but look at how the car is moving. When you do that, it's easier to tell the similarities between places. On to our last point. We all know Japanese drifters and big speed. They're a little obsessed with speed. In this clip, we have Daigo Saito doing a lead run at Suzuka. Yep, 234. In the old days, they would literally have competitions to see who would enter the fastest. I'm not sure what year this was. I don't want to embarrass myself and make a guess. Just by looking at these last two layouts I showed, which is Autopolis and Suzuka, it shows that these were non-dedicated drift tracks, but the choice of layout purely shows that speed means a lot to them. Yeah, speed is dangerous, but they still do it. It's Japan. Now the last fact that I'll speak about, so that we can wrap this video out and it's not 2 hours long. As you can see on screen, when they design drift tracks, they're pretty smart. I'm not sure if it's by accident or on purpose, but they tend to add tightening loops and deep angled corners to stop you from gaining way too much mid drift speed, because the corner is always constantly turning in. You will always struggle to gain too much speed sideways or run away mid drift without a transition appearing from nowhere. This is how they form their non-power based drift sections, which they're famous for. Compared to our friends on the other side, you can clearly see this section on screen favors mid-drift speed. The corners aren't as shallow or as short as Japanese drift sections are. Here you do get your chance to be hard on the gas mid-drift and run away from whoever's behind you. It's unlike Japan, where your only chance to run away is on the straight. But it's not so bad. You can catch up using transitions, as I showed you before. But okay, now let's wrap this up. Let's summarize some key points and practically apply the knowledge we have now. Number 1,